We recently watched Fate, the Winx Saga on Netflix, and I have some feels about it.
I have something to say.
Hello, my name is Charlie. You might know me better as sci-fi fantasy writer C.E. Dorset or the musician who makes music on this channel. Hi, welcome back. So today I would like to talk to you about Fate, the Winx Saga, which is a new series on Netflix. It's fine. If you're not familiar with this, it is a story about a group of fairies at a magic school and the dark and sinister forces that are coming against them. Yeah, originality points. I will neither ascribe nor unascribe to this because, let's be honest, magic schools have kind of been a thing for a very long time. Apparently, it's based on a kindergartner cartoon called The Winx Club that I have not seen, and while I contemplated watching, I didn't. I didn't out of lack of interest, but out of the fact that people were very, very brusque about how much they both loved it as a child and how this is not that. Well, of course it's not. It is a teen supernatural romance. In fact, the creative team hired many of the writers from The Vampire Diaries to fill the staff so that they could write a supernatural teen romance series. I'm not surprised that it then feels a little bit like The Vampire Diaries, but with fairies. So, is it any good? That's kind of an ecumenical matter. It really comes down to whether or not you enjoyed this particular genre. I really like fairy stories. I like fairy stories a lot. I like dark and gritty fairy stories. I don't like stories about fairies that are all shiny and happy because, having read a lot of Celtic folklore, that's not my fairies. Fairies have opinions. Tinkerbell was a monster, if you've ever read the original Peter Pan, which is one of my favorite books, and I like my fairies to be complicated and complex. And the characters in this show are at least that. While I've seen some people talk about how one-dimensional or two-dimensional they felt the characters were, that felt more like bias on the reviewer's part than anything actually approaching the characters themselves. Each character in this series, unlike most series of its kind, is given a character arc. They have a place where they begin, a journey that they must go through, and an end state that they arrive at the end of the season. I can think of a lot of shows in the genre that I have watched and enjoyed over the years that only the protagonist gets that treatment, if at all. So the fact that every character that we meet, from Bloom to Terra and all the way down the list, gets a proper character arc, that's interesting to me. I also felt that they talked like Zoomers. I mean, they talk like the Zoomers that I know. So that made it ring with a bit of authenticity for me in a way that I didn't expect for a show of this kind. Also, I like the mystery. I like that people have ulterior motives. I don't like how Bloom constantly just accepts what everybody says to her while constantly saying that she's an edgy teen who's just trying to find the truth and everybody's lying to her except for the last person who talked to her, who was obviously telling the truth. I do have a problem with that, and Bloom is not entirely a sympathetic character. Not in the way that they intended. Terra, on the other hand, is amazing, and I love her, and I will continue watching the show just for her. Now, I don't want to get into spoilers too much, but the basic gist of the show is that our main character, Bloom, was born to non-magical parents in the human world, or the first world as it's discussed in the show. She is found and brought into the other world, where the fairies live, into the kingdom of Solaria, where she is going to be taught at Althea School of Magic. Althea, of course, means truth in Greek, which is the type of subtlety I expect from shows like this and often include in my own writing when I'm doing this kind of story, because it really should be kind of obvious at face value what you're getting at. I am also curious to see how they pay off some of the things that happened at the end of this season, but I don't want to get into spoilers in this particular discussion right now. Needless to say, along the way, she discovers that, surprise, surprise, everyone has been lying to her, and apparently she is more important to the setting and the story than one would have initially assumed, unless, of course, you're a fan of this genre and you realize that she's probably a chosen one of some sort, because that is how this genre generally works. Magical character who ends up falling in love with other characters has some important role in the grand scheme of things. Check. That is how this genre works, and I didn't expect it to deviate from that. It did not. Our characters include a princess and an overly truth-telling person. You have your girl who's all in touch with nature. Basically, every stereotype that you want to have is included in here in some way, shape, or form. For the most part, I feel that they are given three-dimensional arcs, which again is interesting in that they only had 6 episodes to tell the first season. Could it have been more fleshed out? Yes, if this was a 12-episode series, I would have expected far more from it than I am from a 6-episode series. The fact that they were able to get as much character development as they did in those 6 episodes is amazing to me. Beatrix, of course, is our mysterious stranger who has her own agenda in the school and is kind of a jerk. But of course, she's the character that we expect her to be. Everyone has a secret, everyone has some truth that needs to be revealed. Again, par for the course for this genre. Why did I enjoy it then, if I'm just basically ticking off how it conforms to the tropes that I expected it to be playing on? I think the acting was good. I enjoyed the way the characters were performed and really liked some of the dynamics that were set up. Watching the princess deal with her mother and the interplay of the teachers was interesting. Watching the dynamics of a group actually coming together to discover the power of friendship was fun, especially to see in a teen drama of this kind. Usually it's fairly haphazard and doesn't really make sense. They just discover that the true power was in them all along. This series, on the other hand, shows that there's real conflict between the characters and finds a way for them to come together at the end. Was it perfectly written? No. Was it wonderfully constructed? Not really. Is it perfection of the genre? No. And I'm not claiming any of these things. But it was fun, and for a 6-episode series, especially compared to a lot of the tripe that's been coming out lately, it was thoroughly enjoyable if you like this sort of thing. The romance subplots are interesting. Of course, there's a love triangle in the first season that gets resolved-ish. And there's a character that I have qualms about who's constantly having their sexuality questioned, and we'll see where that goes in further seasons should they get it. All in all, I really enjoyed this show and plan to do a rewatch just to see if I missed some things when I watched it the first time, especially now knowing what I'm in for and what I'm getting. I'm curious about the lore, and I would really like to know who the burned ones are, where they came from, especially with the plot twists that we've gotten from them and the little bit of reveal that we've gotten. Honestly, I'm not that interested in the original material here. Mainly because the creator of that original material is the same creator who made this one and has been arguing since at least 2011 that they be allowed to reboot this series and do something different with it. So I don't know exactly how well I'm supposed to expect this content to relate to what came before. As such, I'm not all that interested in doing the compare and contrast. A few reviewers that I saw were very upset that the show takes the kind of desaturated aesthetic that is so common within the genre, and got rid of the overly colorful bubblegum aesthetic that the original cartoon had. The original cartoon was intended for kindergarten-age viewers. This is not. There is drug use, there is violence, there is blood. There's a wee bit of gore, but not too much. This is not intended for children. It's obviously aimed at a teen audience to adult, and I think it fits fairly easily within those parameters. I enjoyed it. I'm curious to see what they do next. I expect it to get a second season, especially because The Order did, and you can go back in the podcast archives and listen to my discussion about The Order. Season 1 was interesting. I wasn't sure that it deserved a second season. Season 2 won me over. I'm kind of curious where they're going to go with the Season 3, which I do believe has been announced for that. But definitely, if The Order got a second season, this show definitely should. It's much better than that one. It's not going to replace my Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which I love so much, but what will? I really like the way that they're setting this up. I like the drama that's being brought in, and I love how they're setting up the dynamics between the characters. I also like the sassiness and the fact that they're willing to talk back, especially to each other and the people in authority. I'm kind of down with that. Those are my first impressions for Fate the Winx Saga. I would like to go in deeper with you about this, but again, having only seen it once, I'm allowing my opinions to grow and develop over time, as I encourage all of you to do as well. Have you seen Fate, the Winx Saga? Are you not interested in it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Please, in a civil and compassionate way, let me know down in the comments. I would love to hear from you. If you would like me to talk about this series more, let me know about that too, especially if there's a particular character or episode you would like me to do more in depth about, or a concept that is addressed in the series. I would love to hear from you. You'll also find links in the description box to my Ko-fi and my Patreon if you would like to help me continue doing the work that I do. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alrighty. As I like to end everything, because the world is a trash fire that we have not fixed, even though we've had an election that doesn't actually change the world until the changes are actually implemented and put into place, let us all say in unison, Black Lives Matter, Black Trans Lives Matter, and trans identities are magic. And until next time, may you have the courage to ride your dreams into reality. And don't forget to have the fun. Bye.